You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And it's March, which means spring is coming. Oh, joy. It also means that our guest for today is a recidivist, a returnee to the program. Last year, prize-winning, best-selling author and investigative reporter Katherine Stewart was a guest on this program, talking about her excellent book, The Power Worshippers, Inside the Dangerous Rise of Religious Nationalism, about the rise of the ultra-right in this country and its long-term plan to seize power and gut, if not erase, democracy. That book, The Power Worshippers, was made into a documentary feature, God and Country, produced by Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner. Well, Katherine Stewart is wonderfully on fire, and she has just produced another book called Money, Lies, and God, about how we got here, what went on and what goes on still behind the scenes to get us into this predicament in the first place, and how we can undo it. She has covered the intersection of faith and politics for more than 15 years in distinguished media such as the New York Times, the New Republic, The Guardian. Her 2012 book, The Good News Club, covered the religious right effort to infiltrate and undermine public education, and they're about to do that. So first, however, before we talk with her, we need to take a brief pause, but then we'll return in just a moment for the conversation with Katherine Stewart. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Katherine, welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, it's great to be in conversation with you today. Thank you so much.
Well, last week on the program, in preparation for you, I read Elizabeth Cady Stanton on women and Christianity. And boy, she was radical. God, she was incredible. So she made a very good pedestal for you to plop on. And it worked. Now,
well, I don't know how to follow up on Elizabeth Cady Stanton, but thank you very much. I really look forward to seeing where our conversation goes.
Listen, I think
a lot to say about
misogyny
and the role of misogyny and what we're seeing today, and also the fact that this is a radically anti-democratic movement. So,
yes,
looking forward to the conversation.
Precisely, yeah. Well, in the Power Worshippers, you talked about the rise of the new Christian right and how it had been building for years. In this one, you're on fire, my dear. In this one, you go into how we got here and what it actually means. This is money and power and God. And it's dynamite, this book. So you break it down into 5 main categories of actors in the anti-democratic movement. You talk about the funders, the money boys, and the thinkers, the pseudo-intellectuals, the new right, and the sergeants, who are like the sort of pastor networks who are everywhere and thickly woven. And the power players, they're national level actors like Ralph Reed and people like that. And then the foot soldiers, who are the poor schlubs who get manipulated into being the evangelical right, all of the foot soldiers who write the letters and do the picketing and do the so forth. And they have in common sort of four characteristics which I found particularly fascinating. One is catastrophism, that it's about to, world is about to end, and it's talk about chicken little. A persecution complex, identitarianism, which is that their entire sense of self is bound up in identity politics, and most of all, the authoritarian reflex. Now, you get the four categories and the five categories and the four characteristics. You've got quite a toxic package. So take it away and tell us how they got here. They planned, for one thing.
That's absolutely true. This movement long preceded Donald Trump, and it will long outlast him.
Yeah.
The strength of the movement is a consequence of decades of investment in its infrastructure. The movement is leadership driven and also organization driven, and they've invested in these different organizations that have operated largely outside of the purview of the actual Republican Party. So for many years, the Republican Party thought, wow, we can make use of this movement and its people. They turn out an awful lot of votes for us, and they're very consistent. Where else are they going to go?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
over the years, as that investment has increased and the infrastructure building and networking has increased, and the movement has learned from its failures as well as its successes, figured out what's working and what doesn't, they've increased their power, and essentially the guardrails for the Republican Party have fallen away, and this movement is now controlling one of our two major political parties.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to sort of go back to something you said about the four dispositions. I mean, they wrap themselves in the American flag, and they wear red, white, and blue and call themselves patriots. But
Yeah.
this is a radically anti-democratic, anti-American movement. It's founded, I would say the contours of the idea are that the United States is founded not on any principles, but on a specific religion and cultural heritage. It's the idea that America is on the brink of an apocalypse,
Right.
owing to the rise of equality and what they call wokeness. It's the idea that democracy won't be able to solve the problems that we face as Americans, and the idea that the rules don't apply anymore. And what we need is a strong man instead, an authoritarian leader who's going to put himself above the law,
Right.
who's going to seize the reins of power and scrap the rule of law in favor of the iron fist. So in sum, it's really the idea that democracy, in the sense of a government of the people and respecting individual rights in a pluralistic society with laws that are deliberated in public and everyone is held to account, no matter how powerful, it's a sense that this kind of government simply doesn't work. So you need to smash it up and create something new, an autocracy.
And they've said that,
And
right out, in a sense, haven't they? I mean, certainly Trump has said it. I alone can do this, and I am your retribution, and I mean, all of the comments have driven toward that point, and certainly all the actions. And he's done what he said.
absolutely, he has. I mean, they told us in advance of the election that they were going to smash the administrative state, is how they call it, and that's precisely what they're doing.
Right.
Although it's still kind of shocking to see it in person when it's
Yeah.
actually happening in front of your eyes.
I
But the firings of the workforce, the federal workforce, leaving many of these agencies incapable of effectively doing their work,
That's
the
right.
elimination of agencies that have been approved and the money's been approved by Congress, the decapitations at the FBI, turning the Department of Justice into Trump's personal
Law
vendetta
firm, yeah.
agency. Yeah, I mean, that's just to start. The
Yeah.
needless trade wars, destroying alliances with our closest friends overseas who have
foreign
helped us
policy.
sort of promote Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a
it's really
nightmare. It's a
we're
nightmare.
seeing it all happen.
Yeah.
We're seeing it all happen, and Trump promised to help the little people, right? He said, "I'm going to bring down the price of goods and services, and when they, I'm fighting for you, and when they come after me, they're coming after you." This is all just rhetoric. This is just
Yeah.
all campaign trail rhetoric. I mean,
Yeah. It never
he is
happened.
cutting Medicare and Social Security to promote tax cuts for billionaires
Yeah.
and basically rejiggering the entire country in order to promote benefits in a feeding frenzy for people at the very top while making life more difficult for everyone else.
What gets me too, Catherine, is the absolute blatant, bald, bold openness of it. I mean, it's the this is what we're doing, and we're doing it, and screw you, world. The hell with you, democracy. Sorry about that, United States. Or not even sorry about that. It is so egregiously in your face. It takes my breath away. And probably that's one of the, in fact, I remember there's some writing of Goebbels that says if you make the lie big enough so that it takes people's breath away, and so that
Mm-hmm.
they can't believe it, nobody would be serious in this extreme,
Mm-hmm.
then you're in, you know. Uh, well, go on. So this has been many
Well, I
years
mean,
in the making.
no, exactly. Listen, they're doing right now what Steve Bannon said they would do. His strategy is I'm not going to use the word, but he said, I'm going to flood the zone with the S word.
That's right.
And yeah, I mean, this is just a strategy. It's intended to, a lot of this is they just want to make liberals upset.
Right.
And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And then they're, making substantive changes that are actually going to really hurt their base.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they're mixing it up with stuff that's just intended to trigger the libs, as they like to say, like renaming the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America.
Yeah.
These are just symbolic things that don't matter, but
Yeah.
they sometimes get people upset. But what we really need to be doing is focusing on the ways that they are actually hurting life for ordinary Americans. And when those Americans start feeling the pain of their prices of goods and services going up because of needless trade wars and their public schools that they send their kids to shuttering because of the war on public education and government services that they need and deserve not really being there for them anymore, and so many other things, we need to be able to say to those folks, these are the people who are doing this to you. We need to
Yeah.
really expose the real agenda behind this movement, because they're really good at distracting people with shiny baubles, sort
They
of
are.
culture wars and things like that.
So we have to do eyes on the prize, and really,
Exactly.
be totally laser focused uh on our agenda. But our agenda is so, I mean, there was poor Schumer, God, Senator Schumer, up there doing his "We will win" little chant, and I was so embarrassed. It was awful. It was awful. And so the Democrats are not providing that leadership. And where is it?
Well, there have been, I do want to say, there have been, as of last week, some 50 lawsuits
Yes,
launched against various features of this. And some of them are landing. I mean, so much of what I'm not saying that there are any guarantees or that the
right.
courts
Yeah,
themselves will save us,
yeah. The
but we
court.
can't
Now it's all in the
pretend that
courts.
there have been no efforts to sort of either block some of this stuff in the courts because it's patently unlawful, or at least slow roll it so
Yeah,
that we have elections in how many months? Is it 18 months?
yeah.
I mean, we also have to remember that Trump won by a relatively small margin.
I
If you
know.
look at the percentage of Americans who
It was
support
not a
presidents who
mandate.
win, right? So he doesn't have the country didn't go MAGA. What happened, and we won't get into the reasons because there are a lot of them, but for a variety of reasons, what happened is that there was a reduced enthusiasm for voter turnout on the Democratic side. I don't know how many tens of millions of Americans just simply didn't vote, but it was a pretty, like a lower percentage than in the 2020 election.
yeah,
So I think that, one thing the right does very well is that they turn out their base and they go after low propensity voters.
Yeah.
And then if there's an election in November, they don't start campaigning in September. They're campaigning all year round. And they're telling everybody not only that their vote matters, who's on their side, but also they give them immediate paths for political engagement through groups like Moms for Liberty or, the anti-abortion groups or things like that, which basically function as an arm of sort of Republican voter turnout. So these are, I've written my last 3 books to really show how this movement is operating, why they have the political power that they do.
Yeah.
Somebody described my last book. He said, if politics is a watch, she takes the back off the watch so you can see how it works.
That's
And
right. That's
I
really
like
right.
that description because I like to show how they did it.
Yeah.
Because, listen, they're using some really craven tactics that we wouldn't want to emulate, but they're also using certain tools of democracy to, destroy democracy.
Oh,
but those
yeah.
same tools can be used. But the same tools can be used to restore it and improve it if there's a will to do it and strategic moves are made.
Give an example for our listeners of one that can be turned two different ways.
Well, I mean, an example, for instance, is, I was at America Fest recently. It's in December. It's an annual gathering put on by Turning Point USA, which is one of the leading organizations of the movement. And there was a lady at one of the breakout sessions talking about voter turnout. And she said, if you're, she said, we tap trusted voices in communities. We find trusted voices to get engaged and turn out, and do some voter turnout. And she said, if there's an election in November, don't start in September. Do your first outreach in March and don't talk about the election. She said, just have a barbecue and only invite Republicans. And you just get to know people. Just have it be a community building experience. And then a couple months later, you can reach back out. It's like, oh, hey, remember me from the barbecue? It's so great that you brought that potato salad. Let's talk about some of the issues that affect our values. So it's basically relational organizing.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of folks who did voter turnout, took buses to different states where they felt like there were swing states and they thought they could do voter turnout. But that kind of activity, as perhaps vital as it can be, specifically in sort of signing up to people to vote, et cetera, it's like somebody in the community is going to be more trusted.
Of course.
So relational turnout, relational organizing is super important.
And it goes on because then it's value added, then that person reaches out to somebody, and they model it for each other. Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of low propensity voters out there, and we need to reach out to people and help them understand that their vote really matters, and it matters in every election cycle. And democracy is fragile, and they need to, we need to help them understand what's really at stake.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're up against people who literally say, I don't want, more voting people, heavier voters. It's not good for our side.
Paul Weyrich.
That's right.
Paul Weyrich said it decades ago. He said, I don't want everybody to vote. Our influence in elections goes
down
up when the number of people voting goes down.
That's right.
I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but it's on video and anybody can look it up.
Oh, yeah.
Saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
And now, of course, they're trying to reduce the number of Democratic voters through various means. Have you been aware of the SAVE Act?
Say that. No. That
the SAVE Act would it would require all Americans to prove their citizenship with documentation that's frankly unavailable to millions of Americans. It has been reintroduced into the U.S. House of Representatives, and it would require Americans to prove citizenship by presenting documentation in person when registering to vote or updating their voter registration information. Now, so specifically, it would require the vast majority of Americans to rely on a passport or a birth certificate. Now, a lot of Americans don't have passports.
Right.
Here's the fact. As many as 69 million women who have taken their spouses' names do not have a birth certificate matching their legal name, and many of them do not have their passport. And they've specifically said that providing registration, you can't update it, you can't use a marriage certificate to prove a name change. So this is a way of disenfranchising millions of American women.
God. They said they didn't think women should vote, so, or some of them said that with the quiet.
Some voices have said that, or some of them say, like Doug Wilson, the political pastor that Pete Hegseth has praised and who attended a church that is linked in some ways to Doug Wilson's big sort of religious organization. So Doug Wilson is a political pastor who is sort of his, let's say, profile within the movement is being elevated.
Mm-hmm.
And he has said it was a mistake to allow women to vote. Now,
that's it.
Women weren't allowed to vote. We had to fight for the right to vote. But he said that is a mistake, but others a little more subtle about it. Some of them say we need head of household voting, in which the idea is that the, quote, head of the household, who is, of course, a male in their view, gets to decide the votes for everyone in that house.
Because it's family values, Catherine,
Right, exactly. That's what they say.
That's
what they say.
Yeah.
So,
it is,
so they have other ways
execrable.
Of preventing women from the right to vote. But the SAVE Act is a real clear and present danger in the short term. So for anybody who is listening, who's American and doesn't have a passport, get your passport now. Now's the time to apply for it or get it updated if you don't have a birth certificate that matches your legal name, because we are not reissued birth certificates when we get married.
I didn't know that. I don't know how I didn't think of it. Who thinks of these things at the time? My God.
They do.
They
do.
You are absolutely right.
And honestly, that's why I think that, I hate to plug my book for a second, but that's why I think reading my book is really important, because it helps people by understanding how this happened, who they are, how it works. You're better equipped to anticipate the moves that are going to happen, and you're also much better equipped to fight it and to resist. And the final section of my book has some very specific examples of,
I'm looking at it now,
recommendations for things that we can do.
That's right. And it isn't just that you're better equipped. You're equipped, period. You're not equipped without this book.
Don't.
This book
right. Well,
is
we can't know what we're.
It's your key. You have 6 principal findings, which should not necessarily say, but be of interest, strong interest, to a pro-democracy movement. And to remember these. And this is helpful to me, frankly, Catherine, because I wonder every time I read you, and you're such a good writer too, but every time I read you, I wonder how come her head doesn't explode with this knowledge in it and surrounded by these people, and moving in and out of their circles as she does. My God. And I've asked you that before. How do you survive? And in previous interviews, you said, well, because I think I'm doing some good work, and that keeps me going. And I had good mentors, but my God. So in this last chapter, you talk about, 1, we're in the majority, which is important to remember. 2,
I think more Americans would. Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
Yes, they are. You're damn right. More Americans would be for democracy than not. 2, they are divided, and we don't think about that. We always think how they're a monolith and we're the scattered shot ones, but they are very divided as well.
Mm-hmm.
The separation 3, the separation of church and state is a good idea, and we should try it. You're right, very wittily. If we had serious separation of church and state, we would have much less of this problem, because it's the overlap with religion where it's lethal. Extreme levels of material inequality are ending democracy, and they are. And so that when you get
contributing, they're contributing.
They are certainly contributing to it. And the oligarchy and the fact that Elon Musk is where he is a perfect example of that. And the way that they went,
Mhm.
that all of the multi-billionaires sat together at the inauguration. I mean, they were doing anticipatory obedience. They didn't even wait for the mandates to come down.
Mhm. Mhm.
The extreme levels of material, I said that one, of material inequality are eroding democracy. 6, knowledge is power. And most important of all, I think, organization matters. And then you go into each one and how and why, and we can practice them. And because getting organized is often where people drop off. It's like, they say, what can I do? And then you tell them, and then you can see they have a me-go effect. My eyes glaze over. They sort of think,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I'll do that, and you know that they won't. So I want to know how we get around that one more, because organizing. I mean, everybody should be an organizer, shouldn't they? Everybody should carry their organizer badge with them, and wherever they go, they should raise this. They should participate in the democracy. This is not a dream. This is a literal exercise of power. So that's
That's true.
a real problem.
Well, I feel like, look, if there were easy answers, I wouldn't be here on the show. I'd be writing about the secret life of trees or something. but you know, but I think that it's really important to get involved, because if you're feeling hopeless or sad about this, or you're not feeling good about it, once you get involved and you connect with like-minded others, you really, it sort of takes away all of that, sort of those negative feelings. It sort of helps
Yeah.
you have a path forward and a purpose. There's nothing more meaningful than the struggle for democracy, especially, I should say, for disfavored groups. Like, you know, since we're, on your show, I want to talk about what the Republican Party, under the influence of the Christian nationalist movement, is doing to women's rights. What they're doing is just a version of what other gender unequal societies around the world are doing.
Right.
Religious fundamentalists everywhere insist on women's subordination, partly out of fear of women's power, because they want the power for themselves, and partly out of fear, partly out as a reward to men for their own subordination to higher or often religious authorities.
Yep.
So, it's about women, but it's also about men, because inequality among men often feeds into this kind of misogyny. History and sociology have shown us that societies with massive economic or political inequalities also tend to have extreme gender inequalities. You've got a large group of relatively disadvantaged men who are anxious about their prospects of securing respect and dignity in society. So they have to sort of subordinate themselves. They get no free speech rights, no right to political opposition to the folks running the show, but they're sort of bought off with promises of male supremacy.
Right, exactly.
So there's a subordinated woman, usually his wife, who's a man's reward, and she provides domestic service, of course, but she also serves as a convenient object upon whom he may exert control, and vent his own frustrations.
Right.
So the fact that he lords it over his wife or wives and children, it distracts him from the fact that he may have no right to free speech, political opposition, religious freedom, etc.
Yes.
So, in a gender unequal society, it's like I have friends who come from extraordinarily gender unequal countries who say, my dad never really noticed that he had no rights and that his behavior was very carefully circumscribed. How he was supposed to behave and what he's supposed to wear is very carefully circumscribed, but he was so busy sort of controlling his wife and kids that he was distracted and felt really puffed up about it.
Not only that, but we've also found, and social scientists have also shown at great length, that those societies are where men are in effect bought off, by
Mhm.
dangling women as subservient in front of them, where
Mhm.
gender inequality is at its most extreme, are also the most warlike societies. There's an
That's
extraordinary
really
set of
interesting.
extraordinary set of studies by Valerie Hudson of University of Texas A&M, I think. Um, and she and a number of scholars did a series, 12-year in-depth, I think something like 40 country survey um, of charting this, and found that the more that the signs of civil society um,
Mhm.
were not, as we have all been taught to think, influenced by, based on, or heavily skewed by democratic means, by
Mhm.
geopolitical means, by civil society, for that matter. No, they weren't.
Mhm.
They all reduced to one factor, which is how that culture treats its women. And the more subservient women are kept, the more violent the culture is, and the less, the less. So I've just been running around waving her book and your book and your book and these two books. It's her work is called I think Women and World Peace. And it's extraordinary. I mean, so we know these things, but we don't use them, do we? I mean, I guess maybe that's the
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it follows a classic pattern with the rise of authoritarian leaders.
yeah,
It's not particularly logical, but it still happens. They run on aggression, and then they need to channel their aggression and focus the rage of their constituents on external objects. So often, what they'll do is engage in these sort of overseas expansionist projects that aren't really going to benefit them at all. And in fact, often lead to their downfall. And look at what Trump is doing. He's threatened Canada, he's threatening Greenland, he's
I
threatening Panama.
know.
It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah,
But so I think part of it is just, channeling his rage and aggression and trying to project himself as a strong authoritarian leader,
yeah.
along the lines of his bro buddy Putin. But I think in some ways it's also intended to appeal to the expansionist aims of Putin, of Russia and China. And in a way,
Well,
it's like saying to China, "Go ahead, take Taiwan," or it's like
yeah,
saying to Russia, "Go ahead, take Ukraine, or maybe we'll get them to agree to some, crappy deal where they have to give us all this money and mineral rights for
yeah,
in exchange for basically no offer of protection."
right.
It follows that authoritarian pattern.
Well, another thing that follows that authoritarian pattern, and from the same author, from Valerie Hudson, is a study, another sort of study that she and 12 scholars did, called Broken Branches or Bare Branches, which is a study, I can't remember which title, but it's a study of China and the one-child policy. Okay, and when they basically murdered 10 million girl babies, because
Hmm.
there were no. Okay, so now China has this
Hmm.
deficit of women, this real problem.
Yeah.
Not enough women. And this study points out that what happens when you have an authoritarian government, and when you have a deeply unbalanced population, uh, like they have many, many more men now than women. What do you do with
Hmm.
all these young men who are young and who, want to have families and
They
who
get
want?
radicalized.
Yeah, well,
They don't have intimacy in their lives. They don't have
that's an
partners.
so
It
so
makes them very angry and resentful and prone to extremism.
and yeah, you're right, right, right. And the only thing to do is, if they're going to be contentious, is to get them out of the country. So you begin to have a whole imperialist, very radical deportation, to have armies
Mm.
in Africa, in various places. So you get them out of the country, because if they're going to make trouble, you don't want them making trouble at home. I mean, it is amazing, and it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. But it hinges on the presence or absence and effect of female citizens. And that is the element that mostly is assiduously ignored.
So
Ah,
interesting.
yeah. It's terrifying, actually. Oh, well, you are a gem, Catherine. And I just
Well, thank you so much. I'm really honored by your praise. Really
no,
appreciate that.
no, the work that you're doing is just remarkable, and I expect another book from you in about 6 months. You just churn them out, kiddo. But we need that.
Well, no, it takes about 5 years, but thank you.
I
I think
know,
I'd like
I
to.
know, I'm
This one is
joking.
still really relevant. I mean, I think that elements of this movement are still really poorly understood. I talk about how the new right and the Christian right are the power couple of the new American authoritarianism. And I think people know about the religious right, although they often don't know precisely how it works. But I think the new right is a lot more mysterious to people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movement that is, I think, less explicitly Christian nationalist, but
Yes.
also more explicitly anti-democratic in its aims and in its expressions. And there are members of the new right who have become quite sanctimonious. And look, we don't know what's in people's hearts. We don't know to what extent they're
No.
being sincere or not. But we also know that this is a movement that reveres a political philosopher who argued that there is certain kinds of speech that you just, tell the rank and file to get them on board,
Yeah.
but another kind of speech, other kinds of messaging you reserve for the true believers, or the people who are want to be the new elite.
Yeah.
And I believe that this is in many ways how they operate. There are some members who they're very sanctimonious in public, but the great thing about being an investigative journalist is that sometimes people around them will reach out quietly and
Hmm.
tell you things about them and say, well, all this stuff is all the sanctimonious stuff. It's just, it's just for the little people. The way this person
Oh,
lives their life, it's not very
it's
sincere.
not. It's
Although
not.
I do believe there are some people who are quite sincere. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I've observed some of the political operators, the power players over time, and some of them I do believe truly think that they're
They're true
that
believers.
their understanding of are true believers. But two things can be true at the same time. They can
Yes.
be true believers, and they can also recognize that what they're doing is good for their own fortunes. It's good for their bank accounts.
Damn
It's good for
right.
their power.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Ah. Well, take care of yourself, Catherine. I mean,
Likewise.
I still think we should get you a red curly wig and put you in disguise sometimes. But
Well, never wearing a wig, never going to be in disguise. Actually, a wig would be fun, but just for fun.
No, you're doing
I
remarkable
tried.
work.
I would look terrible as a blonde. I'm just going to tell you that. I
All right, all
don't have
right,
the right skin tone,
all right.
but
Well, we'll keep it dark. What the hell? I mean, but no, you're doing amazing work, and you're doing
thank you so much.
the real stuff. And so, I hope that the book tour is wildly successful. I hope people read the book, buy the book,
Thank you
and
so
give
much.
it to other people, because it's like
Mm.
air, it's like oxygen, and we need it. We desperately need it, especially now. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really great to chat.
We have to take another brief pause here, but I'll be back directly with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Pollution is a fighting word. A recent article in the New York Times by Kat Hill about a Scottish isle, which is Earth's newest dark skies sanctuary, got me thinking. One of the ways we humans, and there are so many, are polluting the planet is by the over-emission of light. particularly artificial illumination. But a tiny island called Rum, R-U-M, just west of Kinloch Bay, has no streetlights. Light-flooded sports fields? No. Neon signs? No. Industrial sites, or anything else casting glows on the night sky. In winter, when the sun sets early and rises late, a blackness develops the island so deep that the light of stars disrobes itself suddenly at dusk, and the glow of the moon is so bright you can read by it. So Rum has been named Europe's newest dark sky sanctuary, a status that Dark Sky International, a nonprofit organization focused on reducing light pollution, has granted to only 22 other places on the planet. Rum's designation is the result of a long, meticulous bid by the Island of Rum Community Trust. Blackness of night provides more than a cosmic spectacle for human tourists. It's essential to the environment because low light levels are crucial for nocturnal species, and artificial light influences the feeding, the breeding, the migration behavior, so much of wild animals. The signs on Rum and in Mayleg, the harbor town in the mainland from which the ferry to the island departs, reminds people to turn off lights to protect birds. Catherine Haymans, an astrophysicist at the University of Edinburgh and the Astronomer Royal for Scotland, she champions Rum's bid for dark sky status. Dark skies, she said, are part of nature and what it means to be human. They're a powerful reminder that although we live on a small island, we're part of a vast and interconnected universe. All of us.
And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.